Okay, so we're live. Welcome back to the Magic Minds podcast. I'm Matt Burke. Welcome back to the Liberties. We're back on location. We said we'd capitalise on this amazing area that I love so much, which is the Liberties. We're here at the Tree of Hope, a tree that was planted in memory of people that died by suicide. And it's quite a coincidence that I'm here today, because the show that we're bringing to you guys at the moment now is on mental health. And just by coincidence, I'm back at the Tree of Hope. I didn't plan that. This interview was meant to go out a couple of months ago and it never happened. And then, hey presto, here we are at the Tree of Hope. The show that we're bringing you today is a show we recorded in the Workman's Club in January. I was asked to come on a panel to talk about mental health. I think it's an alternative view of mental health. My pal Toy Gluby and his classmate Hugh, they're studying psychotherapy. They collaborate with FortNight, and they came up with this night, and it was a talk. On the panel was myself, and then there was a guy, Jody. Jody is a fitness expert, and then there was Dr. Shay. Shay is a psychologist. It was a brilliant night. You know, we all got to talk about our own story. I spoke about how I use social media to make vulnerability, shame, fear, guilt, anxiety as a superpower for me, so I can inspire my community. It was my community. Anyone that follows the podcast, anyone that follows our work on social media. And I got to talk about that, and then talk about my fear of public speaking, and also then share a poem that I wrote, you know, that kind of explores and opens up my vulnerability. When I've been around a lot of leaders, and we all have fears and anxieties and vulnerabilities. So it was an absolutely fantastic opportunity. I'm really delighted to do it. Great bunch of lads, great occasion. We got tremendous feedback about the event, which was deadly. I'm delighted. I'm sorry it took so long to bring it, but sure, look, I don't try to force things anymore, you know. I just let them be the way they be. So look, let us know what you think of the interview. We really appreciate your feedback. Check us out. We're on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, all the podcast service. Like and subscribe. Do all the good things. Share with family and friends. Let us know if you have anyone you'd like us to interview. We're always open to that. Stories that have the power to inspire. That's our mantra. So look, as always, thanks to Noel Riley from Rooney Media Graphics. Andy with Liberty's Photo, doing amazing work with us on the podcast team. We'd be lost without him. He's brilliant addition. We have a fantastic team at the moment. Shannon's Hope Line, Mental Health Warriors, all the mental health advocates out there. Check them out. This is a time of need for people to get support. So yeah, just be kind to the people at this time of the year. Be kind to yourself, and as always, mind your little self. Have a fantastic day. Take care. Bye.
Our talk tonight is on the holistic approach to mental health. Myself and Ty Louie are hosting this talk. So both of us are trainee psychotherapists, so we're extremely passionate about mental health. And in September, we're due to, if all goes well, we're due to begin our clinical training. So it is our intention, I think, over the next couple of months and years to host more events like this. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. So it's absolutely my pleasure to host this tonight and to be a part of the first FortNight Festival. I'm really passionate about, you know, their goal of breaking down stigma and raising awareness around mental health. It's very important to me. So I just want to introduce the panel tonight. So the man there just beside Ty is Jody Kennedy. So Jody is a real practitioner of the holistic approach to mental health. He's a sport and fitness and wellness guru, and is really passionate about the ancestral approach to health in general, movement, breathing, and back to our old traditional ways to help us improve our health. Okay. Besides Jody then is Matt Burke. Matt is a cognitive rehabilitation specialist in the National Rehabilitation Hospital. So Matt has the very noble job of helping people post-traumatic injury to redevelop or develop their cognitive skills. And Matt is also a very keen supporter of mental health and mental health stigma and awareness, and hosts the Magic Minds podcast. Okay. The man beside him is Dr. Shay Ward. Shay is a long-time friend of mine. So Shay is both a qualified medical doctor and a psychotherapist. So he holds a undergraduate and master's degree in psychotherapy from the School of Psychotherapy attached to Vincent's Hospital, UCD. He then practiced for a while in psychotherapy, decided that wasn't enough, so he wanted to actually really help on frontline psychiatric services. So he went back to school and became a doctor, and now he works as a registrar in registrar in psychiatric services in the community mental health service in Dublin. So I think we brought together quite an interesting panel to look at things from a different perspective. Okay, so just a few things of housekeeping. All the opinions expressed here tonight are that of the individuals. It's nothing to do with their employers or any of the organisations they're affiliated to. So it's just really important to note that for all of our speakers to hear tonight. The other thing is, this is a mental health discussion, so we will be talking about mental health topics. If you are activated or get upset by anything that's discussed, take your time, leave the room, do whatever you need to do. But it's critically important to me that you don't go home upset or leave the venue feeling vulnerable. Come and talk to any of the volunteers or any of the panel, or come and talk to me directly. Okay, so really, really important if anybody is feeling low after the talk or triggered by anything, that they reach out to somebody. There's a number of mental health professionals here, so really, really important from that perspective. And finally, I suppose the run order for tonight is we'll pass the Toy will MC, and he'll pass the the topics across the panel. Each panel member will discuss their own journey and their own approach to mental health individually. We'll then have a interval, and after the interval we'll have a small group meditation exercise, which you don't have to partake in if you don't want to, but it's just the power of the group and the power of healing in a group is very, very strong. So I think we'd like to practice that tonight and show that tonight. We'll then have a number of questions that we'll debate across the panel, and finally then we'll throw it open to the audience for some Q&A. So I do just ask when we throw it open to the audience that we are discussing mental health topics, we are discussing topics that are sensitive to people. So please be mindful, if you're making a statement or asking a question or debating with somebody, just be mindful of all the other people in the room, please. And that's it really. So I'm going to throw it over to Ty now to kick off the event. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for coming. Our first speaker is going to be Mr. Jody Kennedy. So big round of applause for Jody Kennedy.
Great to see us all. I'm probably the least qualified person on the panel here to be talking about mental health, so I'm going to start by just talking about my own journey, and then from there you'll hear the experts talking after that. So. I have a couple of notes written down just to keep me on track and stop me wandering, so forgive me for that. So my story starts at my grandmother's funeral. I think I was probably about 10 years of age, maybe a little bit older. And this was the first time that I realised that something wasn't quite right, or that there was something odd. And we were standing around the bed as we were waking my grandmother. We were in the bedroom, and all of my relations were around, and everybody, man, woman and child, was crying. And I remember standing there thinking, why am I not able to cry? I wasn't able to express that emotion in that time. And it frustrated me a lot, And afterwards, outside, I remember my cousins, we were all around the same age. I remember my cousin saying to me, why weren't you crying? Did you not feel sad? Do you not miss Nanny? And of course I did. And I didn't understand at the time what was going on, And that went on and on as I got older and as I grew up. The same kind of thing came up again and again and again, where an emotional situation would arise, a friend would be in trouble, or something happened and I wasn't able to step in, or I wasn't able to access that emotional spectrum that I needed to be there for people, or that I needed to be there for myself at that time either. So, I mean, I grew up in inner city Dublin, and I learned at a young age to posture, I suppose, and to shape and to do things that enabled me to not be a victim, you know. I think like we all learned that at a young age, and that was a tool that worked at the time, but all that stuff serves to kind of harden you up and numb you to a certain extent. And then out of the frying pan into the fire, I went from school directly into the military, which is another environment that kind of shuts that emotional side of things down. So, you know, in the army, there's no space for vulnerability, there's no space for expressing emotion, there's no space for individuality. All those things are punished in that environment. But saying that, I enjoyed my time there, and I think ultimately I was searching for rites of passage in the army, you know, and I did get that initially. But as time went on, I stayed for 12 years, I stayed way too long. And as time went on, I kind of realised that I was quite unhappy, you know, and that this environment was beating me down, and that it was numbing me up more and more and more and more. This inability to access emotion and express emotion just grew and grew and grew until I was essentially numb, you know. And towards the end of my military career, I started to hear about a plant medicine called ayahuasca, and this was a traditional medicine that's used down in Peru, all over South America. And I'm not going to go into the details of it, but it's a very traditional medicine. It's used in a ceremonial way to access and to open people up and to get them to a space where they can get in contact with themselves again. And I read some books and I listened to some interviews, and this just seemed to me to be exactly what I needed, you know. So in the last year of my military career, I decided that I was going to go and do this. I booked my flights and I headed off down to the jungle in the Amazon basin in the middle of Peru, and I spent a month down there doing medicine ceremonies, you know, with different plant medicines. And it was an incredible experience. I can't unfortunately go into all the details. I know you'd probably love to hear the juicy details, but it was a mind-blowing experience to say the least. But I will say that down there was probably the first time that I truly saw myself, and it was the first time that I actually understood myself, and it was definitely the first time that I opened up in front of a group of strangers and cried and expressed emotion and was there to hold space and be supportive of other people, and it was just the most incredible experience, you know. And I say I probably cried more in my month in Peru than I had ever cried in my whole lifetime before that, you know. So coming back from there, I was probably a little bit naive in thinking that I've done a fair bit of work now, you know, I've done a month of intensive work and like everything's going to be great. But the year after that was probably the hardest year of my life, you know, because I think like any therapy, like any self-development work, the work itself is one thing, but the integration is another thing altogether. So bringing what you've accessed back into your life and trying to implement it with other people and bringing it into the fold with your friends and family, and that's the real difficult part, you know. And over the space of that year, I kind of, like, the business that I've been running fell through, friendships fell away, a lot of things just started changing in my life, and my whole life was thrown into chaos, you know. I was brought to a low point, you know, and at that point I understood what people with mental health issues go through, because I had never understood it before, you know, and I was now in a place where that was me, you know, and I understand how hard it is for people, because it's a silent thing, you know. You're going through this monumental thing to you, but it's from the outside, it looks like nothing, you know, or it doesn't seem like a big thing to people, so it's a very difficult place to be. And thankfully I have a very supportive family, very supportive friends, amazing friends and family, and you know, that really is what brings you through these things. But during this time, as I was brought down to my low point, my lowest point, I just started to, I'd always been into health and fitness, and I just started to go trail running, and I started to go and swim in the sea, and this stuff just became addictive to me. Like, me and Eva, my wife, was sitting there, we were only joking about it earlier. I had no job, I was in bits, we had no money, and I was going to swim out in the sea, you know what I mean? And she's like, what the hell are you fucking doing? Like, but she was still supportive of me, but that's what was it. I just had this like addictive tendency to keep going back to nature and back to movement and back to breath work, and then I started to meditate a little bit, and just over time I started to reconnect to myself and rebuild and, you know, reconsolidate friendships, and because I had been isolating myself to a certain extent as well. So yeah, over time it was movement and breath and meditation ultimately that allowed me to start climbing back, and I think I needed to get to that low point to start rebuilding and start to understand who I was again. Like, I was at a point after the army where I didn't think I was institutionalized. I was talking to Tig about this earlier. I would have never said that I was institutionalized, but after coming out of the army from 18 years of age and never having to think about money or never having to think about anything that like people have to think about, and then losing that kudos that you have when you're in a job that's cool, you know, inverted commas cool, it was rough, you know, it was weird, and I've never understood what institutionalization is, but it's a strange thing. But ultimately, the word that I want to have here is as a run through is connection, you know, because I think that connection is the thing. If we lose connection, that's when we get to the point where we get low, you know, and connection to ourselves, connection to the environment, the nature that we live in, connection to friends, family, and like we are more surrounded by people and things, and we're more connected than we've ever been, like electronically, but we're more lonely than we've ever been. And I think that's the answer, is to start to reconnect to each other and reconnect to our base nature. Yeah, and that's it. So that's it. Thank you very much for
coming. Our next speaker is going to be Mr. Matthew Burke. Big round of applause for Mr. Matthew.
I want to ask you a question before we start, and I'd like you to raise your hands for this one. Hands up who's comfortable with talking about vulnerability, shame, fear, guilt, feeling unloved, feeling unworthy. Put your hands up if you're comfortable talking about that. Wow, there's a couple of people there. Wow, yeah, it's difficult. I'm okay now about talking about it, but I didn't grow up as a kid, you know. Vulnerability, shame, fear, anxiety, all those things. I played bop it with those things, I bop it down. You know what I mean? I wasn't letting any of those things come up, you know. So I want to talk to you tonight about how I use creativity and service to make vulnerability, shame, fear, anxiety a superpower for me, okay? I work in the National Rehabilitation Hospital. I'm the host of the Magic Minds podcast, stories that have the power to inspire. Shameless plug. I do videos, I do vlogs. I always laugh when I say vlogs. My 6-year-old says I'm not a vlogger, a YouTuber, because I'm boring. True story, kid. I deliver out modules such as open disclosure, MAP. I'm a safe talk trainer for suicide prevention. I teach meditation. I teach strength conditioning class. I do all these things, and I do public speaking, you know. But I want to be honest with you, hand on my heart, right? I sit here as a grown-ass man, beard, bald, go to gym, work on me disco muscles. People sit there and look at me and go, oh, he's confident. But really, what's happening for me right now, I'm absolutely terrified. My hands are shaking. I want to run away. I don't want to be seen. I'm vulnerable, right? But I'm okay to talk about that right now. I'm okay to tell you that, because I know that's not true. You know, I didn't realise for years growing up that I had a childhood trauma. So I was what I thought people wanted to see. I was loud, I was bigger than I am now. I called people out on their bullshit, I took no mess and blah, blah, blah.
all to suppress. And if that didn't work, I took drink and I took drugs to suppress it. And that didn't work, you know, till I found out that the root cause was the childhood trauma. You know, so what you really see sitting here or standing here, or whenever I see like a perceived threat, it's the memories of an 8-year-old boy who didn't feel loved, who didn't feel worthy, who didn't feel safe. But I know that's not true, because my friends, my family, my beautiful girlfriend loves me. Tyg loves me, well, he tells me he does. I think he loves Sarah more. You know, so, but it's only when I done the work that I found out that was the problem, you know. So what work did I do? I done lots of work. There's tons of things that you can go out and do. You can go work on your disco muscles like I do. I'm only joking. I actively engage in counselling, psychotherapy, you know, personal training for my mind. I go there and I still go there. I read, I do self-directed learning. What else I do? I engage in courses, personal training. I do all these different kinds of things. But one of the most significant things for me was probably the journey of the podcast. You know, I'm sitting down interviewing people who are sharing their vulnerability, sharing their stories with me, and being vulnerable. Why could I not do that with them? So I went along that journey with them. But one of the most significant things possibly when we talk about creativity and service of people in my community, who are my community, anyone that follows the work of the podcast is my community, you know. So I go on social media and I use like Instagram, Facebook and Twitter to talk about my vulnerabilities. I talk about my shame, I talk about my fear. I'll talk about here today that I sat here shaking, look at my hands. But vulnerability is a show of courage, you know. So that's what I do. I go on Facebook and I talk about my life in service of, so people can be inspired, just like the podcast, you know. And that has helped me loads. So I'd like to share a poem with you that I wrote. It's on leadership. I wrote it when I was on a leadership course. I was with all these high-powered leaders, you know, and I'm sitting there, I'm just not from the flats. I'm shaking, I'm nervous. I'm with all these big wigs, innovators, CEOs of companies. I'm like, I'm nervous. But it was my time on the course that really opened my eyes, that these people had the same fears as me, they had the same worries, just in different parts of their life. So I was a leader, you know, just like they were. Leading comes from within, you know, so my poison has now become my potion. So let me read you a poem. I don't know it off heart, I have it here. It's called 41 Going on 8. I am big, but I am little. I am strong, but I'm fragile. I am brave, but I'm scared. I am the light, but I live in the dark. I am warm, but I'm cold. I am a leader, but I am lost. I am happy, but I am sad. I am full, but I am empty. I am there, but I am not here. I am sure, but uncertain. I am the sun, but I am the shade. I am 41, but I can be 8.
Thank you very
Hold on.
hang on.
This is why we're friends. I'm going to end with what I say on all my videos and all my talks with anybody is, hand on my heart, mind your little self. Be kind to you in service of the rest of the world. I think compassion, empathy, self-love starts within, so you can be a leader for yourself in service of your community. Who are your community? Anybody that's on the same journey as you, anybody in this room is your community and your crew. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Dr. Shay Ward. So a big round of applause, please, for
Thanks very much. Shay Ward's my name. And just when Jodie started off there, expert, I'm by no means an expert. We're all human, we're all on our own little journeys, and that's why I was very happy to partake in tonight, because that's what I was asked to come along and speak about my journey so far on this planet. So maybe just a brief kind of synopsis of where I am now and where I've come from. I suppose a very slow person and a late bloomer. I think that's what we're called these days. And I was probably living in La La Land until maybe about 28 years of age. So in other words, I was kind of coasting along, things are going grand, didn't have much issues in school, never wanted to go to college. I was going to be, I was thinking about this the other day, I wanted to be a managing director, and the company I wanted to own was a haulage business. So talk about like aiming for the stars. I'm gonna have a haulage business. I have no idea why that was. I love cars, I'm fascinated with cars, passionate about cars, and probably trucks as part of that as well. So maybe that's what it was. And but anyway, I was in my little bubble, and I was going to school, and I was in the scouts, and things were grand, and as I say, I kind of coasted on through, and then I suppose maybe looking back, I did the Leaving Cert when I was 16. So it's quite young, isn't it, when you think about Leaving Cert, what's kind of, where direction and everything else. But I, as I say, I had no interest in that because I just wanted to go into business. So my plan was I'd start in a company and I would work on the shop floor, and I'd, go around and I'd work my way up through the different departments. That's exactly what I did. So I worked for well, actually, first of all, I worked with a retail, I won't mention any names tonight. I worked at a retail outlet for about 2 weeks, and nothing happened. Very presumptuous, but nothing happened. What did happen was a scout leader friend of mine said that his brother had a company. It was December, they were very busy, and would have been able to give a handout for about a month. The month of last 2 weeks in December, first 2 weeks in January. It was like electronics, a Japanese electronics company. So I was like, "Grant, yeah, sure. When you start this job, I'll go and I'll work for you." So went down there, started the job with the proviso that would be for a month, and then into January. Then I kept, at the end of the day when I finish up, I'd say, "Will I come in tomorrow, or is that it?" And I was like, "I'll come in tomorrow. Yeah, I'll come in tomorrow." So anyway, 7 years later, I finished up with that company, and I had kind of progressed up through different departments in it, and I got into sales. Loved sales. Dad was a salesman, so same name. Dad was called Seamus, I'm called Seamus, and so that was fine. And then the company I worked with was huge internationally, but didn't have a kind of a huge Irish presence. I wanted to work for the number one company at the time. This is about 20 years ago, by the way. So I did that, and then I worked thinking it would change my life and that I would find whatever I was looking for, because all the time I was in these jobs, very easy, company cars, expense accounts, all that kind of stuff. So you want it for nothing. So it was very easy work, and I wasn't pushed or challenged in any way. So thinking then, if I change company, I'll work for the number one brand. I'll be really kind of, that'll challenge me. And the same thing happened. I got there and I worked for about 3 years, and I just thought, no, I was searching for something to find meaning, I suppose, and put meaning on my life. Somebody close then to me died suddenly, and really, I suppose that's when an event like that, a life event such as that takes place, you really take stock, I suppose, and that's what I did. So I kind of examined what did I want to be. So everybody I knew at the time was in Australia, so this was just for the millennium, I think it was around 1999. So I said what I would do is I'd take a month off work, I'd head down to Australia, and I'd have a kind of think about what I wanted to do. So on the plane, luckily I read M. Scott Peck, The Road Less Travelled. So that book, and I know he's an American psychologist, passed away a few years ago. That book starts off with a fantastic opening, which is life is difficult. So I thought this is great. So I started to read that book anyway, and then I recommend it to anybody. He also has 2 books on fiction. I remember one is In Heaven as on Earth, that really kind of impacted on me as well. But really on that plane journey down to Australia, I just thought this is great, because the way the book is laid out gives a little bit of theory in the first half, and then the second half then some case histories to kind of match up the theories. And I thought, maybe I'll become a counsellor, a psychotherapist, that kind of sounds interesting work. But I didn't want to leave that comfortable life that I had. So what I decided to do was go to a night school, and that was a kind of a way of putting the toe in the water and see if I liked that area of work, and then see kind of, I hadn't gone to college, so I didn't know if I'd be able for it. And so that's what I did. Went to night school. It went brilliantly. I absolutely loved it. Fell in love with Freud and all of his friends, and decided this is for me. Went into the job, handed back the keys of the car, and I drove out into the sunset on my Suzuki Marauder 250cc, and I began my college days, and I haven't looked back since. So it's been really interesting. I've been very lucky in the sense that the way I kind of studying, and the way I suppose the subjects that I have studied, and that I initially would have been kind of general arts, which was philosophy, anthropology, psychoanalysis, politics, very broad kind of range, and then moved into kind of specialised then kind of psychotherapy and that kind of area. And then while in Vincent's on the course, we had every Wednesday was amalgamation of psychiatry, psychotherapy, and then the clerics, the kind of in-house spiritual guides. So it was a nice discussion like this, and we discussed cases and things like that, and I thought, this psychiatry, what's that about? And I thought I'd be interested in that, and so that's why I set off then to go to medical school, and for that reason really become a psychiatrist. And so that's why, and that's what I'm kind of doing at the present time. And I suppose it's really, sorry, I'll just take some more, speaking of what Matt's talking about, anxiety. Anxiety can be good at times, by the way. Now, anxiety isn't always a bad thing. That's how you're still alive. But anyway, that's evolution. We'll talk about that. So basically it was, what I liked really, I suppose, in those case conferences we discussed was this, what's called a bio-psycho social approach, biological, psychological and social, the kind of the three domains that you would look at when someone comes to see us. So quite holistic, quite a nice way of working. And that's why I set about to do what I do. And currently working in a CAMS unit, that's Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services in South County Dublin. And really it's bringing that approach of all the things that I've learned into the arena and working with people. And it's an absolute privilege to be with people, and to be with somebody when they're probably at one of the worst times of their life, and being able to assist them or perhaps guide them if you can in some way gives you one of, phenomenal sense of helping, and also to give back, I suppose, in a sense what I had learned or what was given to me, and to pass that knowledge on. But I think a very important part is that we're all human, and everybody has these feelings. As Matt was saying, going to a conference where it's of leadership, and because everybody thinks these people are different than us in some way. We're human, and I guarantee you that any thought you've had, any feeling you've had, any kind of crazy thought that's gone through your head, we've all had those thoughts, and that's, I suppose, a part of sharing and discussion. And then and this is how group therapy works, by the way, because when you get into a group and you start talking about this stuff, and you go, oh right, so it's not just me, and I normalise it, and then people get to realise, well, actually, yeah, that's okay to be like that. So that's really kind of my lot. That's where I am at the present time. I'm still muddling on, I'm still slow, I'm still learning, but I love every day, and I probably learned the most from the people who come to see me. It's as I say, it really is. It's a nice job to have, because of that impact that you can have, but also the impact that people have on me, and then I suppose in the sense of bringing a sense of, how would you put it, meaning to our life. So you can look at the negatives perhaps too much and think there's a lot of bad things going on, but then I recently, in December, I was knocked out for almost a month because I got this chest infection that's going around at the moment, and it really put me behind my work. I was in work today, I was in work yesterday, just catching up because I'm so behind. But really, your health is your wealth, and to take stock of the good things that you have as well. So that's really, I kind of might just finish up on that. I think that's
just, you mentioned the biopsychosocial approach. Can you just explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. I was I finished up in a psychotherapy training course in 2006, and at that time there was a publication called Vision for Change came out. So really, I know some people are out there at the moment, not here, but out there, I'm probably out there, but are kind of dissing it at the moment, saying it's behind, it's outdated and things like that. But it was a great thing, and that really was, what the government said was, could people get together and come up with what they perceive or would think is the best psychiatric service to have. So in other words, how could we improve the service? And that's what came of it was it was a mixture of professionals, lay people, service users, and what came out of that was what's called well, it wasn't just from that, but they focused in on the biopsychosocial model. So really what you're doing is you're looking at three domains to someone's life, really, which is the biological part of their life. So how is that impacting on the biology? So for example, if somebody was having persistent low mood, they might have poor sleep, poor appetite, those kind of things, weight loss, and how you can correct those kind of things. Also the impact on the body. And then there's the psychological. So psychological, therapies that we could then use in the sense of maybe cognitive behavioural therapy or dialectical behavioural therapy, different talk therapies as they're called. And then the social then aspects, and I suppose looking at somebody's social life, and by your social life, not talking about your social life in the sense of I go out on a Saturday night. Your social life really is your home life and your work life. And looking at that and seeing, is there anything there that could be adjusted or could be improved on, or something that's affecting you in a bad way. I know some people, I joined a group over in the UK which is looking at the spiritual aspect of the human, and so some people would say biological, psychological, social and spiritual, and that's kind of something that's, because I think that's, you know, important to us too, in the sense of nourishing that in whatever way that may be, a connection to nature, the cosmos, you know, or organized religions, whatever somebody finds themselves. But that really is the kind of approach that I use, and so that's what, that's where it stems from, really, kind of thing. Yeah. So. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay.
So now just lengthening your exhale is a way that you can reduce your cortisol levels and bring yourself down out of a fight or flight state. And ultimately, state is what controls our nervous state, is what controls our state of mind. So it goes a long way if you can just control your breath and bring yourself out of that. And movement is another one, and even better, movement coupled with breath is such a powerful tool, because the movement helps you to burn off some of that nervous energy, and allows you to maybe get to a space where you can actually sit. And I know how this is how it was for me. I was at a point where I couldn't even sit still and do some breath work, So moving first enabled me to get to a place where I could burn off some energy and actually sit down and meditate. But for a long time, movement was the only way that I could do that. And another thing in specifically with men, because that's something that I've done with men's circles and working with men, is that just stepping into that space and opening your mind up to stepping into that space of vulnerability. So when we do men's circles, it's often very hard to get guys to talk and to get guys to open up. But then we find once they start talking, you can't shut them up. Once you open the gate, it's like you can't stop it. So it takes just that little bit of surrounding and the ability to just have the courage to step into it and be uncomfortable and be vulnerable, and create a container for that. So I suppose find somewhere that you can step into that, and that's a powerful tool as well.
Yeah, any thoughts for other speakers? Maybe Shay?
I can go first.
Yeah, I just done I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with holotropic breathwork. Just as you said there, it's a whole process. It's by a guy called I don't know if he's Czech or one of these states in Middle East or in Europe. He's a psychiatrist or psychotherapist, and he came up with this. He used to treat people with LSD, and then it became illegal, and he came up with this whole process called holotropic breathwork. What he does, the same kind of thing as LSD. He changes your state of consciousness through breathwork. It's a whole process, and he uses therapeutic music, a certain tempo, and blah blah. So we've done a whole video on my experience of it, and I put it on YouTube. If anyone wants to go and look at it, it's like similar to the ayahuasca. We've done a lot of therapy over the years, and I've done a lot of going deep. Well, I thought I did at an intellectual level, I did, but this brings you to another altered state of consciousness through the ayahuasca and that. It was powerful. It was moving. It was I've done lots of different things across the board when it comes to therapies. But I don't believe this is the best thing you can ever do. Anything is not the best thing you do, but it's another area to explore. There's so many ducks that you need to have in a row when you're going on the road of doing your work or doing the journey around your mental health. People kind of latch on to maybe the breath work, ayahuasca, yoga, meditation, blah blah. There's lots of things to be doing, but it's nice to hear these kind of things that are options. And as Shay said, the biopsychosocial. There's so many different things out there and options. And that was the thing growing up for me. I didn't know that these were options. I didn't know that this was available for me. So yeah, ayahuasca, holotropic breathwork. There's lots of different things. You'll find what you look for. So that's my kind of slant on it.
Any thoughts to add, Dr.
Yeah, I suppose breathing, and thanks for meditation, because that's something that I would partake in myself, and the breathing techniques, for example, and that something we would use when seeing people. I was actually what came into my mind was the first day I started in one of the hospital in Northside. I literally had just walked in the door and I just picked up my pager and there was an induction or something going on, and I ran up to the lecture hall to get the induction. You know, you're told where your this and that is, and you write your passwords, etc. And the thing went off, and I was like, oh no, I'm on in the door, and I'm an induction today, it can't be for me. I went down. It was actually they were asked me to come down to see somebody who had presented in a high state of anxiety. So I was in a high state of anxiety as well, because being the first day, and I was nervous. So I said, fine, Grant. So I went down, and lovely lady, and I got speaking with her, and that's what came into my mind actually, was the breathing techniques, and not just alone for her, but for me, to calm me down. And I did, and actually I remember when because I asked her, invited her, did she want to do it, and she said yes. We did it just to calm her initially, and we did it together. But I remember then just kind of trying to open my eyes and, oh yeah, I'm working. But and there's a lot to it, and movement as well, because this is what happens when if you have a bout of anxiety, it's part of our kind of the fight and flight, as they refer to the system, but I suppose it's the adrenaline, really, that rush of adrenaline that can be terribly uncomfortable, and that's what we usually do, is we burn it off, by movement, or breathing as well. But so there is, and also you oxygenating the blood as well. You're blowing off the carbon dioxide. So it's very, very, very useful techniques as well. Yeah.
So our second question, discussing the role of technology in mental health. So maybe Matt, some of the pros or your experience of technology in mental health. Is it all doom and gloom?
Look, it's as I was listening to Jack Cornfield to the day, and he was talking about his walk through the forest with his guru, and the guru says to him, "What's that over there?" And he says, "A boulder." And he says, "Do you think it's heavy?" And he says, "Yeah, it's really heavy." And the guru says, "Not if you don't pick it up." So growing up for me, there wasn't technology. I had drugs and drink and Tipex dinners. So I didn't have internet and all that kind of thing to fall into. But I would have if I did, But now that I'm a lot older and I've done the work, technology to me is something that I can use to my benefit, like I do with the podcast, that kind of stuff. There's apps that you can use for meditation. There's whatever you're looking for, you will find it. As the Buddha says, anything I look at, I see Buddha. Anything in a pig sees a pig. Whatever's in your internal environment, you'll see in your external, and you'll find what you're looking for, whether that be negativity or positivity or love and kindness. The people I follow on the internet, the people that I look up and read on, is about the things that I'm passionate about. But I do appreciate the fact that technology can be dangerous, and we have to be very mindful. It's, as my girl said to me last night, it's like a city. There's loads of lovely places to go, there's loads of dodgy places to go, and you can get the choice and you get to choose. That's the thing about technology, but I really believe, and I don't mean to be flippant, people have to do their work, and if you've done the work, then yeah, it can be okay for you, but then not everyone has done the work, and you have to be very mindful of them, and you have to mind them, whether they're vulnerable adults or they're vulnerable kids. And so it's okay for me to say, yeah, my internet's grand and it's great for me. I wouldn't flippantly say that. I wouldn't openly go around singing from the roof, that's wonderful. No, I'm very mindful of other people that haven't done the work, or kids that haven't done the work. So you just have to tread carefully. I know Shay, you have got a lot to say on it as well.
Yeah, I suppose I suppose part of it is this is a big debate at the moment in the sense of telemedicine, and seeing a doctor online and prescriptions as well, that kind of stuff. There are pros and cons to it. I suppose one thing for me is the kind of I think what Jodie opened up on a very important word, connectedness, and I think what a lot of research that won't come to my mind, and I can't think of at the moment, but would say that it really, the type of therapy that somebody engages with, that's not the main factor. The main factor is that connection with the therapist, and that relationship that you have, and this place of this safe space and this place of trust that you feel that you can then speak and you can open up, and then the floodgates, and that's it. There's no stopping people when they have that safe environment. So just how one regulates that, or how you kind of engage with that in the sense of on a screen compared to going into someone's rooms is kind of that would be a kind of a query I'd have. I don't know, but that's what I would kind of be. I'd rather go and see someone, face to face and talk to them and kind of meet them. And, I think there are certain nuances. Not all human. Well, this is my opinion. Not all communication is through language. So I think there's certain nuances that we give off, or we kind of whatever that may be, that we communicate with each other people, and perhaps that might be lost in a kind of I know we all have broadband, but not 56k anymore, so the pictures tend to be better and not just a series of still images. But there might be something in that that's kind of that's lost or something. I think in the kind of in internet. But I think what's really important though is the sense of the likes of what Matt does, the podcasts and making stuff accessible to people. Because because then that is the connectedness and awareness and engaging with people and telling people about different things, and people giving their experiences, and I think that's invaluable.
So our next question is going to be around medication and its role in mental health services. So hot topic. Maybe Shay, do you want to jump in with this one first?
Let's take a glass of water. I suppose the way that the way of practicing, the way of working that caught my attention was the talk therapy and the combination at times of a medication. As I say, that publication, the Vision for Change, came out in 2006. So obviously it was at the time I was studying as well, and I really think that the biological, psychological, social, that three domain approach is so important, because I think there are times when a medication could help. One in my role tries to you want people to make the best decision. You want people to get the best help. That's why they've come to you, and they're seeking that. And I think to really lay out your stall, and to give them the options that they have, and then they choose the option. I think that's the best that one can hope for. I mean, I just thinking of people when they usually will present that with anxiety and stuff like that, or if someone has a persistent low mood. I remember, and I'm not going to go into cases tonight, obviously, confidentiality and stuff like that. I never would, but just the kind of how they can help, I suppose, because really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get someone into the room to work with me. And if you've somebody that can't leave their house, they can't leave their bedroom because of the anxiety or the low mood that they have. And some people can't even leave their bed. They're paralyzed either by fear or by low mood. And that's not going to work. How can I intervene there? But to get them then to meet me, and then you start that work. I think that's really the approach that I take. And so looking at that, I probably think that, and I know psychiatry in particular, psychiatry meds and stuff like that is always, I suppose it tends to be given a bad press because of the history. But I think that really engaging with someone, and again that three-pronged approach that I talk about, because I think the mistake perhaps that people who come to see it, or that other people think about, is that they think the medication is it. They think that this is the answer, and it's not the answer. It's a part of it. Like Matt was saying, there's many different components, and all I've learned actually, by the way, in 20 years or something, I think it is 20 years, all I've been able to say is that people are complex and contradictory. That's all I can say. And so really working with that, and how you work with that. But I have seen them. I have seen medications. I've tried medications, and I've seen the benefit of that. But then I suppose the question, and this is why you have reviews. This is why you see people every 3 months or every 6 months, wherever it is, on the schedule. And I think the question you should have there then is that, how are things going? How are you? What the medication do you want to look at that today? And do you think you still need it? Will we try reducing it down? Or do you need to increase it? which way do you want to go, kind of way, and that dialogue. And there's no point in kind of not having that relationship and someone coming in and saying, yeah, medication's fine, and actually they're not collecting the prescriptions or they're not taking it. There's no point in that. So I think again that's where the relationship is important, to build up that relationship and that trust. I suppose really kind of that's probably what I'd say. And I think they have a role, I think, at times, but yeah.
So they have a role,
yeah,
especially in severe cases.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, I suppose that's the other thing about diagnostic criteria and stuff like that. In the sense of that, people can have a low mood, and then that can be classified into mild, moderate, or severe. So if it's at a mild level, you're having a low mood, or an anxious periods of anxiety, then kind of practical steps, changing something in your social aspects of the home life, the work life that I talked about earlier. Perhaps that may address that, and to the moderate as well. But to the severe, I think that's a different.
Any thoughts, Matt or Jody, want to chime in?
Yeah, look, I have been on medication. I was on Lexapro 5, 10, 15, 20, and I've come off. I'm not now. I'm not pro, I'm not for, against, whatever medication. But when I was taking them, as I said earlier, I hadn't got all my ducks in a row. I drank. My diet was shy. I didn't train properly. My mindset was rubbish. My internal environment was toxic. I had terrible thoughts around myself. I didn't value myself. So I was given medication, but that was just one duck to get in a row. There's many things, So I decided that for me, when I was on it, I'm still experiencing the same thing. I'm still going through anxiety. I'm still now sitting here, no medication, and I get anxious. I was like, what are the benefits for me? I would never tell anyone to take them or don't take them. Versus maybe I need to try other stuff. I journal. I have a structure to my life. I practice love and kindness. I ask myself, what's my intentions every day? When I'm going to send a text to someone, I say, what are my intentions? Am I being an asshole, or am I practicing love and kindness? You can't sell that in a bottle. I practice meditation. I go training. I get up early. I connect with my family, like you said there. These are huge things that you can't sell in a bottle. But again, they're not going to save you, and they're not the great white hope, but they're just part of a process. The same with the medication. So, I'm not saying tomorrow it could be on medication or not. We're just saying try all those other things, try all the options available. Read, learn, connect, choose love, change what you're going to think about. You do have the power to choose what you're gonna decide to feed. What we feed our mind on, it gorges on. Mine used to be very negative and a self-fulfilling prophecy. Everything will go wrong, and everything did go wrong. All sorts of shit happened in my life, But now all I see through my eyes is love and kindness, and that's the avenue we went. I'm not like sitting here like a Care Bear telling that it's all wonderful. I try my best to practice that. When I'm not here, my family probably tell you I'm an asshole sometimes. But my spiritual intention is to try to do the right thing, is what I'm saying. So that's my experience on Lexapro. But you do have negative effects, as in my health markers changed as well. So you have to look at all these things, but they do have a place, all these things have a place, but when you do have options is what I'd like to leave on, really. I'm trying to be a Care Bear.
Jody, anything to add?
I would say, like a lot of Western medicine, like this stuff is probably just a case of what we see in a lot of things now is treating the symptoms and not treating the root cause. Me and Shay were talking the other night about low-hanging fruit. Like, what are the things that are like easily changed without causing too much disruption to your life, rather than being like straight put onto an antidepressant or something like that? Like, is there small things that you can pluck away at without like having to overhaul your whole life? Before you do that, it's not that that's not an option or that's like a negative thing to do. It's just that maybe there's other things that can be explored first before you go that direction, And there probably is a ton of things that people can change that won't affect their life too badly or won't be too much of an effort for them before going that route,
I want to come back in. Can I come back in? Is that okay? Just on that as well, too. There are times of anxiety and that are normal. There's coming up here to I'm nervous. So coming up in an arena like this, it's natural to be nervous, and it's natural to have anxiety about that. My hands are, you know, sweating of all the physical symptoms. My heart is pounding, so I have all these physical symptoms of anxiety. And that's okay before an exam, before the results for the exam, etc. But I suppose really the difficulty can be when I step off the stage here now and we're finished tonight, that will go for me. For somebody else, it might not, and they might be continuously and constantly in this state that I am now, and that's the difficulty. And I think, in the sense, going back to it, I think a little bit of medication and therapy is very successful in that arena, because it can help for someone to engage. So just so you know, because there are natural bodily symptoms that we are, states rather, I should say, states that we go through, you know, but it's the duration and or if it's pervasive, if it's in every arena of your life. So not just when you're going to meet the boss for your review, it's in every arena of your life, you know, kind of way. So just maybe just on that, just talking into my head.
So if anybody's turned our tally in the last 20 years, the story has been that our mental health services are in crisis. So is this statement true as it relates to mental health? So is our mental health services in crisis in Ireland? So anyone want to take on that one? Yes.
I might, sir. Is it okay if I start? Will I start? I suppose, is it in crisis? I think I'd probably start by maybe.
Everything's getting better.
Some things are getting better, but I suppose really depends on the availability of services. So and the demand that's placed on those services. It probably might be nice to set it up this way. I see two differences between mental health and mental illness. We probably might talk about that later on, in the sense that I think there's a lot of people are uncomfortable talking about mental illness. So everybody's very happy to talk about mental health. We put on the green badge, we'll go on TV and radio and talk about it quite publicly. But if I ask you to talk about mental illness, that's a different reaction. All right, I said, here's a gentleman or a lady, they have mental illness. How would you feel about that, the reaction to people like that? So I think we have progressed a bit, but I think we're still kind of hiding a little bit behind language and the naming of it. So why I say it that way, or why I'm setting it up that way, is because you've got mental health, so people who are doing fine, doing well, coping, working. Freud said the meaning of life was to love and to work, so they're doing that. And then you have people with mental illness, and they are not coping, or they need treatment to help them cope, and they're here. And then in the middle of that, you have the majority of people that present to a hospital service. That's been my experience, my own experience on that. And that is people who don't have a mental illness, but everything's not okay. So they're struggling, and they've come to you looking for help. And for us, people in my job, the difficulty we have is trying to communicate that, because what will happen is you'll come in to see me in an emergency situation, and I'll do my assessment. And what I'm looking for is, do you have a mental illness? So I've got diagnostic criteria that I use, ICD-10 for Europe and DSM-5 for the States. And I'm looking to see, do you meet this criteria? And if you do, then I'm either going to admit you, or I'm going to follow you up in the community and that kind of way. So that's really that area. But if you don't meet that criteria, then I probably will be referring you to a community service. And there are excellent community services out there. I work with young people, so I'm very familiar with those kind of services that we use, Springboard, and there's one other one that just because I'm here on the spot, it won't come to my mind. Jigsaw, thank you very much, that's what it is. Yeah, so excellent services, really brilliant people working in the community. The difficulty I have is that when somebody comes to see me and I'm sending them then out of the hospital again, they feel I've let them down. I'm feeling bad because they've come here, and the usual thing I will hear is that I've come to you looking for help and you're not helping me. But actually what I am doing is telling them the best place for you to go is here. So I think really resources around that middle part, that the majority of presentations, and be that through the supporting the community services, and the voluntary services, and really funding them would make a huge difference. I think because they are tremendous, and you only find out when you move into an area and the people who are working there for 20 years start telling you about different things. Phenomenal people out there, tremendous people who in voluntary capacities, they want to help and they are helping, and that's really where I think we need to support that, because I think just the pressure that has come on to the health service are really people that could be of benefit, would get a benefit from the things that I mentioned. I think that's probably a part of it.
Mark, Jody, any thoughts to add? Are people falling through the cracks with regard to mental health services in Ireland?
I don't know about that, but the people that I've spoke to on the podcast, survivors of suicide, services are saturated, and they're underfunded, disability doesn't get a look in sometimes. I'm not in mental health per se, but I hear, people with brain injury, that the people I work with, my client group, as in the guys as well for the podcast, there's not a lot of options out there sometimes, especially when you're struggling, and then sometimes, as you know, when you are struggling, your line of vision gets more narrow and narrow and narrow, and it's hard to see the wood in the trees. So yeah, but I do agree with what Shay's saying. There is some great people in the trenches. There's some fantastic people in the community, like volunteers, the services in your local community. We have Shannon's Hope Line in our community. Two girls, friends of mine, they run a charity called Shannon's Hope Line. One of the girls, her daughter died by suicide, but they're doing tremendous work in the community, free 99. They're educating kids, grassroots education from an early age, and I think that's where we're going to get the best bang for buck. But yeah, I'd really like to echo that. There is great people in the community doing great work for free. Yeah.
Jody, anything to add?
Not particularly, no. To be honest with you.
We covered a lot there.
Yeah.
So, fifth question: stigma. Stigma around mental health. There's lots of organisations such as FortNight doing great work to reduce stigma. Does it still persist in Irish society?
Do you want to go more?
Yeah, well, again, I do believe, there's a stigma and there's a culture, but I also think it's back to the person as well. There's a fear. I've had mental health difficulties all my life, but I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want people to judge me. So even without going into stigma, I wasn't letting it come out anyway, because I was scared, because they think I'm weak, I'm a lesser man, I'm a lesser professional, blah blah blah. But I think there is huge stigma out there, but not just isolated to mental health. I think sexuality, the travel community, IVF. I wanted to interview a couple that have went through IVF, because it was really interesting to hear their story. I says, no, I don't want to talk about it. We've been judged by our family, we've been laughed about in the community. This is only a couple of years ago. I've interviewed people for transgender, sexuality, lots of different cohorts of people, and it's the stigma, but it's back to the fear as well. They don't want to go because they don't want to be judged, they don't want to feel lesser than, so there is out there, again, I have great faith in the kids coming along, because we are talking about, at an intellectual level, we are talking, and we have the language, we have the policies and procedures in place, and the jobs, and dignity at work, diversity training, and all these kind of things. But are we practicing them? In my job, I do see people that are not adhering to it. But I think the kids coming along, I think they will. My daughter, she has kids in our group that are with disabilities and all these other things. And the language is just normal to them. My daughter came out last year, breezed out, which is fantastic. So I do have great hope, but I do think it comes back to you as a person, as well as your fear of coming out, fear of talking about your mental illness or mental health, and then there is that stigma out there. But I do believe that it's changing. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I would think so too. Actually, just to go back, maybe or reiterate what I was saying earlier, and about mental health versus mental illness, and I think there has been, a really tremendous advance. I should just maybe look at us the four lads up here. Kind of thing. I was at a meditation thing recently, and when it was really lovely afternoon, and when it was over, then we asked for a bit of feedback, and I spoke up like that. I can't stop talking now, and so I spoke up, and then one of the female participants said it was great to hear a male voice for a change, and so I think we have. I think there's been tremendous progress and steps forward. I think the next thing really is to kind of look at now, let's say, when you mean that somebody is mentally ill, say mentally ill, it's mental illness. I think using these words now, it kind of is probably the next step. And I suppose with stigma is a little bit easier to change than what I'm going to say next, but it's the stigma really, I suppose, like you're saying, Matt, is really your own views. And it always helps if you know someone or you've been through something yourself that makes it more relatable to, that you can identify with that. So I think there's stigma. I think the worst thing is discrimination. And I think that's really where, in the sense of people who perhaps have dealt with sexual identity and stuff like that, and other things going on, that they feel they can't because I don't want to step out there because I don't want to be discriminated against. So I've been lucky in where I've worked in health service executives, etc., who are very protective of staff and have great policies for staff, and there are procedures there to follow. And I come from the private sector, and that was one thing that struck me actually when I came to the public sector in HSE, was really the difference of how protected one is, in the sense of that it was really, no discrimination on your sexuality or your religious beliefs and stuff like that. And they're very strong on that. So I thought that was really one of the great things. But yeah, I think looking at maybe the area of discrimination will be kind of and really that's harder to change, and usually takes kind of legislative, the legal system kind of thing to roll in there, and laws to be created, because then people start to follow the law then, rather than kind of our own beliefs and attitudes and that kind of thing. Yeah. So.
All right, final question before we throw it out to the crowd. We discussed low-hanging fruit, something maybe that people can take home with them, maybe like a minimum effective dose or something they can do. I don't know, eat more blueberries or something that'll improve their biopsychosocial health. Maybe Jody, do you want to kick that off?
No pressure to go.
There's ayahuasca under everybody's chair.
So probably the simplest thing you can do to change your state is shut your mouth and breathe through your nose. Yeah, so of course have to shut your mouth.
We might find that.
So yeah, the majority of people now are hyperventilators, so we tend to blow off a little bit too much carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide is very important for our body to release oxygen actually into our tissues. So if we can't tolerate carbon dioxide because we're blowing it off all the time because we're mouth breathing, and that's where that term mouth breather comes from, you can't get the oxygen into your tissues. So you could have 100% oxygen saturation. If you can't handle the CO2 in your body, if you're exhaling all the CO2, you can't get that oxygen out to your tissues. And oxygenizing your tissues helps them to recover better, brings your nervous state down. Yeah, so that's an easy hack that you can use to kind of bring yourself down out of a stress state, and bring your tissues, more importantly, down out of a stress state. Because it's not just our minds that are stressed, our bodies are inflamed, our tissues are inflamed, we're not recovering properly. Stress is literally like eating us up from the inside out. So closing your mouth and breathing through your mouth, literally breathing through your nose, is something that you can use very effectively.
Shay?
Yeah, Hugh opened up tonight and was saying that what he expressed here tonight are our own opinions. So I'm here tonight as Shay Ward, and I have 6 things to give you. Don't know how popular I'll be though after I give you the 6. But this is my own opinion and my own view. If you are suffering with mental health difficulties, or in that arena, that area where you're struggling to cope, first 3 things I'd recommend are: if you're drinking alcohol, stop drinking alcohol, stop smoking cigarettes, and stop smoking cannabis or taking any sort of illegal substances, drugs that you might be taking. The reason I say that is that I worked in a few different jobs, but I worked in the south side, a very affluent area, and I worked in the north side hospital in an associated private area. And just as a kind of, I suppose, an interest, I wanted to look back through the caseload of the presentations of the people who came or were referred to psychiatry. So in other words, this is top 4 things that were referred to me at the time, as it wasn't a research piece, it was more curiosity on my behalf. And what I found was interesting was that, so you're basically looking at two completely different areas of the city, and so there's contrast really in socio-economic. So the least thing that I was called to see, so as a psychiatry registrar working in psychiatry, the least referral I had from the emergency department was to come and see somebody with a mental illness. So in other words, somebody with a diagnosis of schizophrenia or bipolar, or anxiety or depression. That's the least thing I saw. And the third thing I was asked to come and see, third case I would be asked to review, was somebody perhaps who was self-harming or had said that they were going to kill themselves. And these were people who were distressed. So in other words, they were extremely distressed, they were overwhelmed, they couldn't cope, psychologically they had crashed, and they had presented into us. And they're the people then that I would engage with. Second thing, I would be, I don't mean to take any offence, I mean case. The second case I would be asked to review is somebody who had attempted suicide, so in other words, either an overdose or hanging. And the number one thing that I was asked to, the number one case, I do apologise for using that word thing, the number one case that I was asked to come and review was alcohol. That somebody had, they had got into difficulty with alcohol. And the reason is, I think, that they were in pain, they were suffering, they wanted to get away from that pain and suffering. And to do that, they were self-medicating or trying to anaesthetise themselves in some way to get away from that pain. And so they were, and I just thought that was quite interesting, that in both sides of the city, it was exactly the same. And so that's why I would say, but I'm not saying put it out forever, you can have a drink and things can be great, depending on where you are in your life and stuff like that. It's not that, but I just think if you are, just in the sense of giving somebody a tip, I think that's you need to, because there's no point in meditating. There's no point in sitting down and do your breathing technique and then going off into town and drinking your head off. It doesn't make sense to do that. So you need to take stock of where you are and where you're at. And the next three then would be eat, sleep, exercise. So it's not kind of rocket science. It's fairly common sense, isn't it? I think it is. Anyway, I don't know to ask people how they feel, but they would be my 6 things.
Matt Burke, anything to add?
Yeah, I would always start within the things that I do. I love journaling. I get my thoughts and put them on paper. Things just bounce around my mind. I just find it easier to contextualise life. I put it on a page and I can see, look at that. I also journal, or I keep a gratuity journal. Things that I appreciate in my life, but things I genuinely appreciate. I don't go, well, the sky is blue and I can breathe. I really think, my kids, my mom, my dog, my mates, this opportunity, anything that I can tangibly feel in my stomach, geez, I'm really grateful for that. I learned to forgive yourself. Think of something that you've done and say, do you know what, as Maya Angelou would say, if I knew better, I'd have done better. Turn in, self-reflect, be honest with yourself, set intentions. What are my actions? Like, why am I doing this? Why did I do that? Call yourself out, be honest to yourself. And then you can start to see the world slightly different. I always found when I turned in on myself, I just seen the world differently, when I forgive myself, when I thought, I'm not the worst fucker in the world. Life just, because I used to think I wasn't, I probably still am, probably just delusional, probably still on the drugs. But that is where the power comes from. It comes from within, turning up and turning in service of your community, in service of your family. You just become an easier and better person. You just see the world slightly different. You look at it through a different prism. So that's what I would say.
Can I just interject? That just tallies up, ties in nicely what I was saying as well, because I don't think you can do that if you're in a haze.
You can't build a bridge, or you can't build a strong house on a rickety bridge. If you're participating in negative behaviour, whether it be drink, drugs, gambling, attachment, any of those kind of things, any kind of ways of being absent from the present moment, you can't build a strong foundation. And I try to implement that in the hospital when we're dealing with brain injury rehabilitation. We cut out substance, we cut out all the other psychosocial stuff, and we try then build a strong foundation. And I think by self-reflecting and turning in, we get the best bang for buck.
I had something there. Just the way that question is asked is so like stereotypical of modern society. Like, all right, one thing that you can do now just to fix it all. I mind the rest of the shit you talk about, but now like one last thing that just you can take home and do. And it's like it's the same in health, in fitness, in wellness. Everyone wants the one magic thing that's gonna do whatever for them. You know what I mean? But it's like death by 1,000 cuts now. It's like we're getting it from all angles, like, you know, your diet, your nutrition, how you move, how you breathe, how you walk, how you live, are you sitting on a chair, standing desk, and it's overwhelming for people, like, I understand that, but this is where self-love comes into it, and you start to have to look at, like, how you're doing things, and are you doing the best things for yourself, do you know what I mean? Because there's no one single thing that you can change, and it's going to change everything. It's small changes over time that makes a difference.
Just to add that as well too, sorry, keep it, can't stop the floodgates open. It's just it's really important that you have to do the work. If you want to improve or you want to change, you have to do it, not the person you come to see. You have to do the work. And I think that's a really important message, that you know you could have the best, like a psychiatrist, like a therapist, or whoever, what you know arena they're in. If you're not prepared to make that change, you're not prepared to go through that, and it's painful. And sometimes that's why people ask us for medication, is because they don't want to go there. They don't want that pain. Keep that away from me. So if you're in that arena, you can't engage with what the lads are saying. Yeah. Sorry. Okay,
Some great insights there. We just about have time for two very quick audience questions. So I don't know how long our mic lead is, so Sandy, we got the mic there.
Well, a very quick question actually.
Yeah, you can shout, we can hear you.
It's
Go ahead.
Jody actually, and you mentioned men's circles there earlier on.
Yeah.
I was quite interested in that. It kind of sounds a bit like group therapy for men.
So the question is,
Yeah.
Jody
No,
can
what-
expand on
no,
men's
well,
circles.
I'm actually just asking, like, are these online? Where can people?
Where can we find the men's
Yeah,
circles?
They're physical circles. Yeah, there's a couple going on. There's a couple other circles going on around Dublin. Mine are more sporadic, but I'm sure. How can we get links? Can we get links out to people? Where's you?
Yeah, I'll be able to get you that information. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Essentially, it's not therapy. It's just holding space. You know?
Could they find on your website, Jody Kennedy?
Yeah, when there's men's circles, we do men's outings as well. But I think the idea is just that it creates a container where you're in a space with like-minded people, where you feel that you can open up. You know, when you see other people that are similar to you, opening up. And I think like for men, it's maybe a little bit harder just to crack that seal and get the juices flowing. You know, so. Yeah, we'll get some links out.
Yeah, I can link in with you afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have